Okay.
Buckle up, everyone, because today we are diving headfirst into a powder keg.
Middle East,
Yeah.
escalating tensions, missile strikes,
Yeah.
ground operations. It's a lot to
Well,
unpack.
as we try to understand just how this crisis exploded in a whirlwind 24 hours.
Really, in just a day, things went crazy. It's
It's a lot. And I think that one of the things that's really important for us to do is to really, take a step back.
and like look at the players.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because this isn't just about two countries anymore.
It feels like this could have ripple effects across the entire region and even draw in global powers.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. This is
One of those things where it could very easily spiral
right.
out of control, so we want to make sure we understand exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
Let's take a step back and remind ourselves who the key players are here.
We've got Iran and Israel, obviously.
Right.
But also Hezbollah.
For those who might not be familiar, could you give us a little background on them?
Yeah, so Hezbollah is a Shia Islamist political party and militant group
Okay.
that's based in Lebanon.
Okay.
They get a lot of support from Iran.
Both financially and militarily.
Yeah.
And they've been around for decades.
They're considered a terrorist organization by Israel, the United States, and some other Western countries.
Okay.
But they also have a lot of popular support in Lebanon,
Okay.
and they play a really significant role in Lebanese politics.
Okay. And then there's Hamas, right?
Right.
Another group that we hear a lot about in relation to this region, but
Their relationship with Iran is a bit different, isn't it?
yeah, it is a bit more complicated.
Hamas is a Palestinian Sunni Islamic fundamentalist organization.
Okay.
They have a military wing
Right.
that is pretty active, and they also have a lot of political power in the Palestinian territories.
They don't always see eye to eye with Iran, but they do share a common goal of resisting Israeli influence.
Okay.
So we've got these different groups, each with their own agendas, and alliances and tensions have been simmering for years.
But things took a dramatic turn in the past day.
Right.
To understand how we got here, walk us through what happened.
Chronologically.
Chronologically. Okay, well,
Our starting point is Israel launching this ground operation into southern Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah.
okay.
It's late at night.
Explosions rock Beirut.
Then comes the news Israeli airstrikes.
But it doesn't stop there.
Right.
This wasn't just an airstrike.
This was followed by a ground incursion with Israel, saying that this was all to stop Hezbollah from violating a 2006 UN resolution,
You might remember this resolution.
which, among other things, called for Hezbollah to disarm.
And withdraw its forces north of the Litani River in Lebanon.
Right.
Essentially, Israel claimed Hezbollah was using its presence along the border to plan attacks.
And this ground operation was necessary to eliminate that threat.
Yeah, that's how they're framing it.
Okay.
But
But this wasn't the first move by Israel?
was it?
No, not at all.
This ground operation, as shocking as it was.
Didn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
It followed a series of increasingly aggressive actions by Israel.
So first you have those overnight strikes in Lebanon we talked about,
Right.
causing fear and chaos
Yeah.
in the early hours.
Yeah.
Before that.
A targeted strike that killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah.
Yeah.
This was huge.
Wow.
This guy had been leading Hezbollah for decades.
This is a major blow to the organization.
It seems like Israel was sending a very clear message with that assassination.
Oh, absolutely.
And, on top of all that, there had been previous cross-border raids by Israeli special forces.
Into Lebanon dating back to last year.
So while the ground operation marked a significant escalation,
It was built on a foundation of prior military actions.
Oh.
Israel launches this ground operation.
already a major escalation, but then things get even more intense.
How did Iran respond to this direct challenge?
So they responded.
Very forcefully
Okay.
and very publicly
Okay.
in a coordinated response.
Hundreds of missiles were fired from Iranian territory toward Israel.
And these weren't just random rockets.
Okay.
They targeted military bases like the Nevatim Air Base.
Strategic locations like the Mossad headquarters near Tel Aviv.
And yeah, even civilian areas were hit.
Yeah.
It was a pretty significant response.
Yeah, it's a lot to process, and I think that it brings up a lot of questions.
So I think we need to take another quick break.
And then when we come back, we will unpack all of this.
Okay.
Wow. So Iran is stepping out from behind the curtain, so to speak, and directly engaging Israel. This feels different, like a turning point.
Yeah.
What kind of message is Iran trying to send with such a bold move?
Well, on the surface, it signals resolve.
They're demonstrating that they are not afraid to engage directly
Okay.
to protect their interest and deter further Israeli aggression.
It makes you wonder if they also saw an opportunity with Hezbollah weakened.
As if Iran felt the need to step in and project strength, both to their allies and to Israel.
That's a really interesting point.
It's, there's likely a domestic angle to this as well.
Okay.
Iran's leaders may be trying to project strength domestically.
Especially given the internal challenges that they've faced in recent years.
Right.
This show of force could be a way to rally support at home.
But, like you said, it's a gamble.
It is.
Directly attacking Israel opens them up to retaliation, possibly even stronger than what they've already seen.
Right.
And we have to remember, Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu is under pressure himself, isn't he?
Absolutely. He is facing mounting criticism from within Israel for his handling of the conflict.
This direct attack from Iran only intensifies those calls for a swift and decisive response.
Right.
He's in a difficult position trying to balance internal pressures with the very real risk of further escalation.
Especially since this wasn't just about military targets.
Right.
You mentioned civilian areas were hit too.
But what does that tell us about Iran's strategy here?
That's a crucial point.
While Israel claims to have suffered no casualties from the missile attacks,
The targeting of civilian areas, even if unintentional, heightens the sense of fear and vulnerability among the Israeli population.
it plays into the narrative of an existential threat
Right.
that Israel often uses to justify its military actions.
So what you're saying is this wasn't just about flexing military muscle.
It was also a psychological play by Iran.
Precisely, they are trying to shake Israel's confidence and sow discord within its population.
It's a dangerous game, but one that Iran seems willing to play.
Yeah.
And in the middle of all of this, you have Gaza.
What impact might this escalation have on the already dire humanitarian crisis there?
Oh, it's a huge concern.
Gaza is yet again caught in the crossfire,
Right.
with tensions at a boiling point between Israel and Iran.
Finding a peaceful resolution to the ongoing crisis in Gaza feels even more distant.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
These escalating tensions mean aid and essential supplies already limited could be further restricted.
Right.
Not to mention the dwindling hope for a ceasefire. It's just a terrible situation.
For the people of Gaza. But it's not just a regional issue, is it?
What has the international community's response been to this escalation?
So the world is understandably concerned watching this situation very closely. Right.
As expected, the U.S. has reaffirmed its unwavering support for Israel's right to defend itself.
But even they have expressed concerns about the potential for further escalation.
European leaders have condemned Iran's missile attacks, but they've also urged all sides to show restraint.
Right, so there are calls for peace, but also acknowledgments of the complex reality of the situation.
Exactly. There have been widespread calls for an immediate ceasefire.
But getting everyone on board.
And more importantly, getting them to actually lay down their arms feels incredibly difficult right now.
Yeah.
It's a tangled web of alliances, historical grievances, and conflicting interests.
It really highlights how one event like this ground operation can send shockwaves through the entire international community.
Yeah.
Speaking of different perspectives, the articles you shared mention contrasting narratives.
Surrounding these events, can you walk us through how each side is framing this conflict?
Sure, so as you can imagine.
There's a lot of finger-pointing happening right now.
Right.
Israeli officials are justifying both the incursion into Lebanon and the previous strikes.
As necessary measures to protect their citizens from Hezbollah, who they label as a terrorist organization.
Okay.
Their narrative is one of self-defense.
They claim their actions are limited in scope and solely in response to an imminent threat.
Okay.
They're really emphasizing the threat posed by Hezbollah's tunnels and weapon stockpiles
Okay.
near the border, and their alleged violation of the UN resolution.
Essentially saying we had no choice.
Right.
And what about Hezbollah?
How are they presenting their side of the story?
Well, they're pushing back against Israel's narrative of self-defense. Hezbollah has denied Israel's claims about their intentions to attack.
And have vowed to respond forcefully to what they see as an act of aggression.
They're framing Israel's actions as part of a larger campaign to weaken Hezbollah and maintain control over Lebanon.
Okay.
They've denied any violation of the UN resolution and have accused Israel of deliberately targeting civilians and civilian infrastructure.
It's tragic, isn't it?
It is.
Each side feels justified, fueled by years of mistrust and animosity. It feels like a tragic echo of the conflict in Gaza.
Yeah, that's the danger of these entrenched narratives.
Right.
They create an us versus them mentality.
That makes it extremely difficult to find common ground or even begin to work towards a peaceful resolution.
Okay, so everyone is digging and tensions are running incredibly high.
And no one seems willing to back down. With the stage set for further conflict, what happens next? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
Where do we go from here?
The situation is incredibly volatile, and it feels like one wrong move could send this spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about Israel's promised significant response on missile attacks.
But what could that actually look like?
Well, that's what has everyone on edge right now.
A significant response could mean anything.
From further strikes against Hezbollah targets in Lebanon.
To something far more drastic, like...
Targeting Iran's nuclear facilities.
See, that's a chilling thought.
Attacking a country's nuclear facilities.
Yeah.
Feels like crossing a line that's very hard to come back from.
It raises the stakes
Yeah.
to a whole new level.
It really does. And, it's not just about the immediate impact either.
Right.
I mean, such an action would send shockwaves to the international community.
And could easily drag other global powers into the conflict, whether they want to be involved or not.
It's like that saying.
If you're in a hole, stop digging.
Right.
But it feels like everyone involved is just digging deeper.
Fueled by fear, anger, and decades of mistrust.
Yeah, it's a classic security dilemma.
Each side feels justified in taking aggressive actions to protect their own interests,
But in doing so, they only increase the insecurity of the other.
leading to this dangerous cycle of escalation.
And we can't forget about the innocent people caught in the middle of all this.
Right.
The civilians in Israel and Lebanon living in fear of the next attack.
Yeah.
And the people of Gaza facing a humanitarian crisis that seems to only worsen with each passing day.
It's easy to forget about them, isn't it?
Right.
When we talk about all this other stuff.
It's easy to get caught up in the military strategies and political maneuvering.
But we can't lose sight of the human cost of this conflict.
Absolutely. I think that's something that's really important to remember.
Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
We've looked at the key players, the escalating tensions, the different narratives at play.
And the potential for things to spiral even further out of control.
It's a lot.
It is.
Dyo-news.
It's a complex and ever-changing situation, but hopefully this conversation has given you the information you need to form your own informed opinions.
Yeah, and hopefully it's inspired you to go out and learn more. Because this is something that's important to stay informed about.
It really is. This story is far from over, and it's sure to have lasting implications for the entire region and beyond.
Yeah.
So stay informed, stay curious, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.